We're going to start by praying. That's my favorite thing to do. So we're going to do that. Dear God, I thank you for this day, God. I thank you for how you've chosen a relationship with each of us, God, and that you've pursued us and you've given us a change of heart to pursue you, God. I pray and ask right now, God, Lord, I just pray and ask that you come through, Lord. I'm sorry that I didn't prepare more for this, God, because this is one of the most important things we can do is just hear from you. So, God, I pray and ask that right now, Lord, you'd meet with us, God, in spite of my ignorance and my lack of preparing, God, that you would still come through and that you would teach us something today, God. Thank you for who you are and for your love for us. In your holy name I pray. Amen. All right, we're going to start by doing an activity. So everyone close your eyes. Close them. Peter, close your eyes. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys some questions. And just, answer them in your head. You don't need to say them out loud or anything like that. Just think through them. Do you remember your first taste of sweet? Do you remember your first breath? Do you remember your first skinned knee? The first book you read? Your first word? Friend, what did they look like? What color was their hair? Their eyes? Were they funny? Okay, open your eyes. Probably don't remember any of that. I didn't. When I answered these questions for myself, I'm like, couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I'm sure my first breath was very hospital-y, but that's all I can say. But let's try something a little more recent. Do you remember your first burrito? Probably still not. No. All right, what about what you had for lunch 3 Saturdays ago? No? Nothing? All right, what were you wearing on your birthday last year? Last year.
I was not wearing
Anything? Oh my goodness. See, remembering's a hard thing, right? It's a very difficult thing, even if it's recent. Like the first questions I asked you guys, it was like your first breath, stuff like that. Like you're barely cognitive at that point. You're like, I don't know, the air's nice, I guess. But even like the most recent things, like your first burrito, maybe some of you are from the Midwest or something, and you like come, all right, the South, sorry, Jonathan. I said Midwest and looked at him. But maybe like still those things might be recent. You had your first burrito like a couple months ago, but you don't remember it. You know what I mean? But today's message is titled Forgotten Remembrance. And it's not just a cool band name, but it's also a tragedy. I don't actually know if that's a band, but it sounds like a cool band name. But it's a tragedy. Remembering is a spiritual discipline that believers have forgotten how to do. And it's especially hard for us in the 21st century when there's so much that we're intaking all the time. It's hard to remember. But today I hope you guys can remember how to remember. So flip with me to Joshua 3. We'll go into that in just a second. It's in the Old Testament. If you have to use your table of context, no shame. I use it all the time. Table of contents. Joshua chapter 3. And that's the spotlight. But first, I want to introduce you to the background singers. So this is right after Moses died. So Moses, the man who he met with God at the burning bush, he went to Pharaoh, was like, let my people go. He frees all the Israelites, and he's leading them through the wilderness. He just dies. And then Joshua takes over, who's like his young apprentice. And Joshua is very similar to Moses. So he takes over, and he's still leading the Israelites through the wilderness. So one of the first things they do is they come to the Jordan River. And the day before they actually come, the Lord meets with Joshua, and he's like, hey, here's how this is going to go. Luckily, the author wrote it down, so we also know how it's going to go. But Joshua 3, verse 11, we'll read it. Behold. We'll stop there. That word is super important. Behold means to literally just stop, take it and listen, pay attention to what's going to be said next. Behold. The ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is passing over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, from each tribe a man, and when the soles of the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap. So when the people set out from their tents to pass over the Jordan with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, And as soon as those bearing the ark had come as far as the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark were dipped into the brink of water, little parentheses, now the Jordan overflows with all its banks throughout the time of harvest. We'll stop there. So the Jordan River is already this powerful thing, right? It's a huge river. You guys are probably familiar with it. We've learned so much about it in classes and stuff like that. But it's huge. But there's something distinct about it this time, is that when they come to the Jordan, it says, now the Jordan overflows at its banks throughout the time of harvest. So the time of harvest, it's insane. It's not just like a lazy river at your favorite water park. You can't like put on some sun bum, sit there with a glass of water, and be like, summer. No, it's intense. It's raging. It's rushing. It looks a lot like this. So that's literally it. That's the Jordan River. Play it again. Play it again. This is what they have to cross. Imagine your new leader, Joshua, comes to you and says, we're going to cross this. That's insane, right? And the Israelites, they don't have a home. It's not like they're going on a camping trip and they have their backpacker's backpack. It's none of that. It's literally all of their belongings, everything they have, their family, their kids, everything. And they're all carrying it. And they walk up to this, and Joshua's like, we're going through. And we're like, okay, you lead the way, sir. But that's insane. But let's keep reading. Verse 16. The waters coming down from above stood and rose up in a heap very far away at Adam, the city beside Zarethan, and those flowing down toward the sea of Arabah. The salt sea were completely cut off, and the people passed over opposite Jericho. Now the priests bearing the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel was passing over dry ground until all the nation finished passing over the Jordan. Did you catch that little bit about dry ground? So it's not just mushy, like muddy, like stuff. Like God stopped the water and literally dried the ground so that it was firm for them to walk over. It's not like the beach where you have like that sand, and as you walk through it kind of slows you down. Like, have you guys ever run at the beach? Like, not on the hard sand, but on the soft sand? It's like hard, right? It's extra work. You have no traction. The sand sinks beneath your feet a little bit. It's not like that. God cares about detail. He made it dry. So God just did an amazing thing, right? Like, think about that. He stopped the Jordan River. He's like, we're good. Like, stops it, walls it up. That raging thing paused. It's like, you can cross. What's cool is that it's the same God that we have a relationship now. So he's outside of time, right? He created time, and we exist in it, but he's not in it. It's not like he's remembering things he's done for the Israelites or knows things he's going to do. He's literally outside of it. And he's looking at when he created earth, at this moment in time when the Israelites crossed the Jordan, at you right now in this class, and then at the time where he's already defeated Satan. He's looking at all of that all at the same time. So he's the exact same. So why is it that today, if you're anything like me, sometimes we think like, oh man, God doesn't do those amazing miracles anymore. Like we might never say it. We might never say it, but deep down, maybe sometimes we think like, man, I wish God would do something great like that again. But the good news is he does. I just think now more than ever, miracles look different. So back then in the Old Testament, some of the major needs were like health and things of that nature. One thing, health. But honestly, that was a big part of it, is that you had lepers, you had people who were sick. It's a lot of like medicine and medicinal things that people were in need of. Nowadays, we have hospitals, we have medicine, we figured out a little bit more of that. And so that's not really our biggest need right now. We have boats and bridges to cross over bodies of water. But today, I think God is still doing the exact same, I guess, like intensity or level of miracles, if that's a thing, as he did back then. It's just now more than ever, it's in our minds. So in today's world, a lot of our battles, our battlefield, our sicknesses, it's all in our head. We're depressed. We're addicted to porn. We're addicted to drugs. We have a rough time with that. We're lonely. We're suicidal. And now more than ever, God's still doing those miracles, just in our minds. He's releasing people out of addiction. He's releasing people out of their darkness that they're tied to. See, just last Saturday night, I was listening to this man's testimony before he got baptized. I think Josh was there too. And he shared how when God had transformed his life, his desire that he was committed to this alcoholism and he was addicted to drugs and alcohol, it went away. So that released him, and he started going to celebrate recovery, and he claimed his freedom. That desire was gone. That wasn't a part of him anymore. Maybe some of us, it's physical healing. And I want to tell you a story about my friend Joy. So some of you guys know her. I think all of you know her probably. She worked here last 2 years. But we went to Thailand on the same team 2 years ago. And when she was there, you guys have probably heard this, but if you haven't, it's amazing. And if you have, it's a great reminder, because we're supposed to remember. But 2 years ago, she was on this trip, and she suffered from chronic back pain for years. I think it was like 8 years, if I remember right, that her back just hurt. In the morning when she got up, she said she had to stretch out, lay on the ground, literally stretch out before she could do even the simplest tasks. And when we went on this trip, it's, for those of you who have been to Thailand, you know it's a lot of physical labor. It's like you're building a hut, you're doing agricultural work, you're digging trenches. It's a lot of just your body doing stuff, moving, lifting things, pressing bricks, whatever you do. And her back the first day just hurt so bad. She had to stop. She went to our little dining area, and she was sitting there, discouraged. And I was like, Joy, what's wrong? Why aren't you out there? Help us, And she was like, my back hurts. And she's like, I know that sounds lame, but I'm actually really discouraged because I can't help you guys. Because her back was that shook. But, sorry, shook. But then my cousin Jasmine actually was one of her battle buddies, so they were in the same hut. And Jasmine that night was like, Joy, I want to pray for your back. So she had Joy lay down, she just put her hands on her back and just asked God to heal her back. And then immediately, Jasmine, if you guys know her, she's super, excited. And she's just like, how does it feel? Is it better? And Joy kind of was just like, yeah. And then, went, rolled back over, and they were going to sleep. But what Joy didn't tell Jasmine is that her back immediately felt better. She was just scared and kind of in doubt that, did this just happen? My back's healed. And so the next morning, she wakes up. She's like, it feels better. And to this day, I just texted Joy this morning to ask her about it, and her back is still healed. She has no chronic back pain. There's no stretching out. There's no, meds to, make it feel better, nothing like that. So maybe some of us, it's physical healing. But God still does great things today, the same stuff that he did back then. So let's keep going. Chapter 4. When all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, take 12 men from the people, from each tribe a man, and command them, saying, take 12 stones from here out into the midst of the Jordan, from the very place to where the priest's feet stood firmly. I love that it says firmly, because that just reminds me, God dried that ground. It's like walking on stage. It's easy. They can just walk across. Where their feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you and lay them down in the place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel whom he had appointed, a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask you in time to come, what do these stones mean to you? Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it passed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to all the people of Israel a memorial forever. Remember. Notice how he says your children. He doesn't say, hey, build these stones so we can remember what God did here today. He says, let's get these stones. And what they literally do, this memorial looks like stones that have been stacked on top of each other. So it's literally like a memorial, 12 stones. I picture it being this high, but I have no idea. Could be 12 mini stones. I don't know. But either way, I just assume it being big because God did a big thing. So he stacks these stones and he says, keep this here and remember. See, remembering is a commitment before you even remember. It's saying in this moment, in the moment that God's doing something, you say, I'm going to remember this. This is what I'm going to remember. This tattoo on my wrist, people always ask me what it means. And I usually tell them it means eat, pray, love. That's not what it means. And if you've seen that movie, you're a sinner. I'm just kidding. Although I haven't seen the movie, so I can't actually speak against that. But this tattoo came from that same trip 2 years ago. I remember leading up to the trip, Steve Jenkins, he was like, Matt, you going to Thailand? And I was like, no, Steve. He's like, Matt, you going to Thailand? No, Steve. Every day, I swear, every day. He'd walk through the student life. I'd be working, stressed. He'd be like, going to Thailand? I'd be like, no, Steve. Every day. And then finally, I just was like, you know what, Steve? Pray for me. I was like, if I'm supposed to go to Thailand, God will take me to Thailand. Sure enough, he did. But at the same time as that, I heard about this great opportunity at Hume Lake. You guys know I love Hume Lake. But I heard about that opportunity too, and I was like, man, what should I do? Should I go to Thailand? Because Steve keeps asking me, it seems like a cool thing, or should I go to Hume? Like, that seems awesome too. And they kind of overlap a little bit. So we'd get back from Thailand June 5th, and we'd leave for Hume or like I'd work at Hume June 5th. So I was like, there's no way I can do both. So I was like, God, I'm not doing both. It's either or. Kind of funny when you tell God what's up, because he's like, all right, bro, tell me what you want, but whatever. But it was awesome because God ended up being like, Matt, you're going to do both. So in Thailand, this tattoo has two meanings. One, it literally means Kursa Yeba Taiji Taiba, and I probably botched that, but none of you speak Korean, so we're okay. But it means, Lord, give me strength. And I got this for two reasons. One, to remember what I had been through. So I didn't want to just go on this mission trip and be like, that was awesome, cool, whatever, and like move on with my life and be like, yeah, I went, I got some photos, like posted on my Insta, got the likes, like I love kids. But it was also like man, God has done a great work in these villages. He has freed these Korean people from the persecution that they were under. And now they have a village, the village that we went to, literally, and it's been developed, it's been growing. They have fresh water, they have a lot of agricultural, they have a way to make money for their families. They have a church. God's gospel is spreading there. And I don't want to forget that. I want to remember that. So that's part of why I got it. And I pray over this tattoo, and I'm like, God, like when I see this, remind me of what you've done there, and remind me to pray for my brothers and sisters over there. Now, the second reason I have it is because it literally says, Lord, give me strength. And that was something I knew I was going to need going into that summer. I was like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to. I've never been overseas before, so I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to fly to Thailand. It's a 14-hour flight, 6-hour layover, 3-hour flight on my specific trip. And I was like, how am I supposed to do that twice and work over there, then come back over here and go straight to Hume? There's no way. And it was insane. I can't even tell you. So we left June 5th. And if you traveled that far, you know the international date line is a thing. And it's like, over here it's June 5th, over here it's June 4th. And so we were crossing. I did the math, it was around 30 hours of traveling that I did from leaving Thailand to going to Hume Lake, because that's where my orientation was. So we flew. I stayed awake on the plane 24 hours straight because I was like, I need to get back on America's schedule as soon as possible, so I can't be like sleeping during the day and stuff like that. So we get back. It's June 4th. I sleep at a friend's house in LA. My mom and my brother drive me up to Hume Lake in the Sequoias the next day, and then I'm like, I'm at Parks. I'm here to work, and they put me to work right away. And I was like, there's no way I could have done that without what God has taught me, what God has provided me, which was his strength. So that's another thing that, like, it seems casual. It's like, whatever, bro, you went from Thailand to work, cool. But for me, that was a lot. It required a lot of me, and it required a lot of my faith in God that, Lord, I'm empty. You have to fill me. You have to take me through this. Joy is a similar strategy. If you know her, on the inside of one of her fingers on her left hand, she has little tally marks. She's literally keeping a record of all the times that God has done a miracle in her life, that he's brought her through something. That I think she has 3 or 4 now. 3. She was talking about adding one more for her wedding, which was really cool. She explained that. But I was like, that's just amazing. So remember, whatever your strategy is, remember. Verse 8. And the people of Israel did just as Joshua had commanded and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, just as the Lord told Joshua. And they carried them over to the place where they lodged and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. For the priests bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord had commanded Joshua to tell the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. Remember, whether it's you make an Instagram post for every amazing thing that God has done, or you have a journal that you write it down in, or you get a tattoo, or maybe you quilt and you want to quilt a remember blanket every time. Whatever your strategy is, remember. I want to tell you guys one last story. So almost a year ago, I got offered a job at another church part-time in their high school ministry. And I almost took it. I actually said yes to the job. But what happened was, I'm very much so, like, I'm invested in one church. So if I take this job, that means this is my church. I'm going to go there. That's going to be my community. I'm going to invest there, get fed there. That's where I'm going to be. I'm not going to do 2 churches. So I remember I went to go, like, check out that church, and it was just very much not like me. Like, I didn't connect with the people there or, like, the teachers. And I was just like, man, this is rough. And I was like, Lord, I really don't want to go here. But I feel like you have called me here. There's just so much peace with taking that job. So I was like, Lord, this is not where I want to be. I don't want to leave my family, my community at my home church. But I was like, if you've called me here, I'll do it. That same week, I was talking to my mentor at my home church about it, and he was like, bro, it's better to get paid for ministry than not sometimes when you're trying to get into full-time. He's like, because like right now, he's like, Matt, you're working and you're serving. He's like, that's a lot of time commitments in two different areas. He's like, if you can work and serve at the same time, like that'll save you a lot. You can be more invested and stuff. So he was like all for it, and I was like, okay, and I just had peace with that. But that same week, I just had peace with saying no. I just heard the voice in my head of God saying, Matt, stay home. And I loved that. I was like, thank you, God. I was like, I didn't want to go, but I'll go. So I remember I told them no. I was like, hey, I know you started the hiring process, but I actually can't take the job. I'm going to stay home, and I'm going to be invested here. And I remember I was talking with my same mentor about that, and I was like fidgety and kind of shaking. And he's like, what's going on? He's like, you're the most fidgety I've ever seen you in my life. And I was like, I don't know. He's like, just verbally process. So I start telling him everything I was thinking and feeling about. Should I take this job? Should I not? Should I stay here? I love it here. I love this church. I love what God's doing here. I feel it was just so like a jumble. And he's like, Matt, I feel like you're called to the Grove. And that's my home church, by the way, the Grove. And at that moment, just an overwhelming amount of peace just came over me. I was stilled. I was like, I think so too. And then this last 2 weeks, I got offered my boss from Hume called me. He's like, bro, you want to come back for year 3? And I was like, absolutely, let me pray about it. And then I went to talk to my mentor, and I was like, bro, I think I'm going to do it again. He's like, wait 2 weeks. And I was like, why? I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to pray about it, but why? And he's like, just wait 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, might be offering a job, something, So I wait 2 weeks. I pray about it. And then he's like, Matt, our high school and junior high guy is moving back home. Him and his girlfriend are going back home. We have a position for you in high school group part-time if you want to take it. And I remember I just went through this last week was insane. I was praying every night. I was like, Lord, I looked like a serial killer, guys. So in my room, I had my bed just open. I had a paper that said Hume, I had a paper that said Grove, and then I had a third paper for whatever I didn't know. And I was just writing on these. I was like, why I want to do all of them. I was like, man, evangelism, discipleship, I get to mentor my kids. I get to be mentored. There's just all these different reasons why I should take them. And it was honestly the most stressful week I think I've ever had. But I was just in my room. I was like, Lord, we're figuring this out tonight. I turned on worship music, closed my door, turned off my phone. I was like, Lord, speak to me. Here we go. Let me know. And it was insane. I was just praying through all the options. I was like, okay, I got offered a job at Hume and at the Grove, and I've learned so much at both places. So it was really hard because I've been used by God in both places and learned so much. So it was it's really hard to choose. It's like comparing a tortilla and a piece of bread. It's like, how do I compare these? They're so different, but they're also similar, but they're different. And it wasn't like, hey, you can either do this here or this here. It was like a location. It was different and different. What do you want to do? I was like, don't know. But so he took me through that. I'm going to throw these on the ground because I keep looking at them and I don't need them. It's confusing me. But so I was trying to compare these two things, and I had forgotten what God had told me just a couple months earlier. He's like, Matt, you're called here. The second I remembered that, I had so much peace again. I went from being in this position, literally crouched over my bed looking at these, crying, saying, Lord, what do you want me to do? I don't care. Just tell me what to do. And then I remembered, Matt, you're called to the Grove. I was like, okay. I slept so good that night. I sweeped that stuff in my bed. I'm like, thank you, Lord. And I went to sleep. And now I actually have a phone call right after this class where I'm saying thank you, but no thank you to Hume. And I'm just going to the Grove. But I want to challenge you guys to remember. That's literally my main point. I'm just going to tell you straight up, remember. And I hope you guys can remember to remember, because it makes your life so much easier when you can remember what God's brought you through. The next time you see a hard situation, God's like, no, remember what I've taken you through. I'm going to get you through this too, and I have a purpose for it. With that being said, I'm going to pray for you. God, thank you for this day, Father. Thank you for speaking this message to all of us, God, and especially me. God, I pray and ask that you would just give us good memories, Lord, that you'd help us to remember what you've done for us, how you've brought us, how far you've brought us, God, what you've taken us out of, and how you've used us, Lord. Give us peace knowing that when we're in your hands and we're in your will, that you're going to take care of us, that you're going to show us what to do, and you're going to challenge us and grow us. God, help us to be a people who remember and who encourage other people to remember. Because, Lord, you're so good. You've done amazing things, and we can't forget that. Thank you for who you are, God. In your holy name I pray. Amen.